Hello. This month for the principals meeting, I wanted to model an instructional practice that we're beginning to see more often. It is one method that you may find helpful as you try to work with teachers to give them additional time to work together and to plan together. So instead of receiving the summary of Leadership Isn't for Cowards this month at the principals meeting, you're going to be receiving my summary today electronically. This flipped classroom delivery model was selected this month to allow you greater opportunity at the principals meeting for interaction while actually being at the meeting with other colleagues. As we near the end of the book, I want to again take this opportunity to connect the learning from the book to the different district initiatives. Section 6 really highlights many of the actions that my cabinet's been trying to implement over the course of the last 3 years. My overarching goal for the district initiatives begins with our district slogan that we're a district of excellence. And my charge to each cabinet member has been to ensure that all departments are functioning to meet that standard. And I've also tried to encourage innovation and out-of-the-box thinking about next-generation learning, leading and learning, and Section 6 really focuses on both of those. So we begin our discussion today by discussing the commitment to new habits. To commit to new habits, there has to be a certain level of accountability. And as your book described, accountability can be positive or it can be a punishment. It kind of depends on what you do with it. I'd like to think of it as not being a hovering or helicopter parenting where someone is checking to make sure that everyone is doing their job exactly as you see fit. And actually, in most cases, it's about making sure the results are achieved, not those everyday day-to-day steps that you would outline for a person. You know, it's about keeping your people focused on what matters and that alignment with your own initiatives at your school as well as the district alignment with clear expectations and well-defined performance standards. So it's not about busting people or catching people. Accountability is about making sure people understand the expectations and then they're able to produce the results based on that. So if you're leading with courage, you're creating that kind of highly accountable culture that people get familiar with. Not sometimes, not once in a while we hold people accountable or we're looking at our results and we're data driven, but it's always, and it's not a punishment to hold people accountable, certainly. The book describes a negative impact that can actually have if you don't have a level of accountability, and talks about how you're really not helping a person and you're certainly not helping your culture and your community. I'm going to pause for a moment because there's a few questions I want you to think about as we move forward in this discussion. And first, are your performance expectations clear? Do you think that everyone on your staff is aware of what you desire as the results and how things are aligned to make those happen? Is it very clear to them what your expectations are? So think about that. And then also, if you have a mechanism and people know what your goals are and what you're driven to improve upon, is there a clear mechanism for measuring that success? How are you collecting data? Do people know it? Those are forms of accountability. And then finally, do the people who report directly to you know how to carry out those initiatives? Do they know how to win? Your power as a leader is to ask the great questions, to bring your direct reports along and help them understand, here's where we are, here's where we want to go, here's how we're aligned. That's leading with courage. So the art of accountability really has to do with your style. You know, remember, you have to focus on being an accountable leader yourself before you can hold others accountable. And this book is written to offer the roadmap for high performance. Again, my goal is excellence is everywhere. That's what we say. That's really what's driving a lot of the decisions for how things are aligned, how things are monitored, and how different initiatives are supervised in the district. And 3 habits that are discussed in this book that are very important include solving the problems that arise and solving those independently. Not that I have to solve all the problems at your building and you have to solve all the problems in the teachers' classrooms. That you're teaching people how to solve problems independently. And that you're also communicating powerfully. And finally, the 3rd habit is playing well with others. So you need to get yourself in the direct reports to you committed to these 3 habits in order to change that culture and have a highly accountable culture to work in. Problems are always going to exist. Our goal is to solve those problems as they come up. We're never going to be able to eliminate all the problems, but we have to learn how to solve those. I was recently interviewed by the Chamber of Commerce for the Women's Initiative, and they asked, is it harder to deal with students, parents, or the community? And I said, you know, it's not really dealing with them. It's actually opening up and listening to them and trying to work through and solve some of those issues together, because those are our stakeholders. We're not going to eliminate every issue that may arise, but we can certainly help people problem solve, communicate, and work through those issues. Those are our stakeholders, and we have to communicate with them as well as we do our own faculty and our direct reports. As the book suggested, it's not recommended that you yourself as the leader in that building be the solver of all problems. I try not to get involved in issues that are school-specific issues or conflicts even that I cannot have direct influence over or control over, or where even interests of my departments are not impacted. We try to back off that and let you solve the problems as the leader in your building. Certainly there to support and help you, but again, investing energy in some things that we're not able to directly impact is really not a good use of time. And I would encourage you to tell those people who work for you, that report to you, to do the same. At times you're going to have to agree to disagree. There are going to be issues that you're not going to be able to solve. Parents may not like the issue. But again, you acknowledge the situation, you try to correct it, but there are some things that are out of our control. So I want you to think about asking yourself, is this a battle you're going to invest that energy in? And if you decide to engage in it, you have to look at those habits. The first habit, communicating powerfully, requires that you have some clear communication and tact. So clarity and tact are core, but when you push too aggressively, it becomes being blunt, and sometimes that offends people. On the other hand, if you're tactful, you may not be seen as really clearly communicating what your position is, and you may be seen as being evasive. And then finally, that third habit, playing well with others. This is a really difficult one for some, because when you have staff members that don't have good relationships, it does impact your culture. You really must be able to deliver the results and also be able to get along well with other people. And that's not where it ends. Because if you can solve problems, communicate well, and play with others, and you're not challenging your staff to create, then you may be frustrating the leadership within. And this is where innovation collides with these habits. Innovation needs to surface here. When things get too comfortable and we do the same things over and over, it can stifle our progress. So when we're together as a group, you're going to have an opportunity to practice some of these skills that we've talked about. But don't allow yourself or your staff to accept status quo. That's the way we've always done it. It's not going to work. I can give you an example. When I first started talking to personnel about having the academy students travel to one another's school, I heard a lot of resistance. There's no way these students will go to another high school. And I had to go to the actual source of information and ask the students and do a poll with students and say, if we have a program that you are truly interested in, would you be willing to go to another high school in order to get that program for part of the day? And 100% of the students surveyed for my superintendent's leadership group said, yes, I would go. And that allowed me to break up that status quo that these students would not travel to another high school. So sometimes you have to push that thinking and you have to go to the source to actually get the data that supports your position. The final chapter in this section 6 talked about commitment to coaching. So how do you move people from what they're currently do to what they can do, and then help them to even realize what they can do? So the first thing to realize is that you can't change or control that person for them. Your job is to illuminate when possible, suggest things. When you're coaching, you have to stay neutral. You can highlight their strengths. You have to be free from bias, though, and not take ownership of their issue. So when someone comes to you, and this happens a lot about something specific going on in their classroom that you don't have direct control over during the day, you need to think about how you're going to coach that person to take on that problem and deal with that problem. And this month, I wanted to model a blended approach to instruction that has also allowed opportunity to practice learning when we're in our group setting together. So I hope you will look for opportunities to do the same with your staff. When you come to the principal's meeting or the assistant principal's meeting, I need for you to bring a description of a real problem. If you have an issue where you're really having trouble communicating with a staff member, maybe you have a staff member that doesn't play well with others, or you have a staff member who has trouble communicating, something real that you're struggling with, because we're going to work on role playing and we're going to work on some of the questioning techniques that your book describes in more detail. We're going to check you for sarcasm and tone. And we'll certainly include some central office personnel in this, because this is a really fun activities where we all can grow. And that's why I wanted to reserve time at the principal's meeting, so we would have time to have that kind of interaction and coach and offer each other feedback. Also at the meeting, you will be grouped and you're going to be asked to solve a district-wide problem. Now, there's something that comes immediately to your mind that says, this is a problem I have with the district, I really want solved. I want you to be able to send that to me in advance. I'm going to need it at least by Sunday in order for me to work that into our plan for a group problem solve. Obviously, we have a few already that we can work on at the meeting, but I want this to truly be beneficial to you. So if there's something that would really help you in having a group problem solve, please bring that, because we're going to practice that at the meeting as well. So I hope that this has been helpful to you as you get ready for the principal's meeting next week. Enjoy your weekend, and of course I will see you next week at the meeting. Thank you.